you. Okay, thank you. So we're on the afternoon test on the top, and the Gemara was discussing uh, which corner we started from in the Mizbeach Pnimi, that he's putting the blood, the mixed blood of both animals, the pound to start together, he's putting on the four corners of the Mizbeach Pnimi. And did he start from the northeast or from the southeast? The Gemara said from the northeast, then he's going towards his right. And if he started in the southeast, like Rabbi Kiva, so then he's going towards his left. And the Gemara the Kasha, why go towards the left? Don't you go he's supposed to go towards the right? And the Gemara said the first answer so far was that since this is inside the Heichal, it's not chutz. Chutz over there, it's talking about the Yam Shlomo and the Mizbeach HaChitzon. And also, everybody agrees that when you go around the Mizbeach, you go towards the right. But this is the Mizbeach HaPnimi, so maybe it's different. And then the Gemara just went on to explain, even if you could go to the left, why go to the left? And the Gemara said because since he passed up the western corners, which would have been the Chatchila, the one that he met first in Mavir al Mitzvah. So even though he had to pass it up because B'Yatzal Mizbech, he has to go all the way to the other side, pass the Mizbech all the way to the east, but then he goes back to the one that he missed. So on the top line, Biboy Sema. So the first terrace of how come he doesn't have to go to the right is because you don't learn out Pnei Chutz. You don't learn out that inside the Heichel he has to go to the right. That's only then outside the Heichel. The Gemara didn't explain why. Rashi didn't explain why. I don't really have a svara. Why should that be? But that was the first Gemara's terrace. Top line, Ibo Yisema, Ismiulan, Hakafa Beregel, the Kul Yamalo Pligi, the Alpina Pnei Chutz. If we would hold that you walk around the Mizbeach, this is now the Gemara is going into the issue, do you walk around the Mizbeach Pnimi or not? In the Mishnah, we had already the issue. And the Mishnah, the Tanakhama sounded like you did walk around the Mizbeach, even though it was very small. The whole Mizbeach is only an amma by an amma. That's a half a meter by a half a meter. You still walked around to each corner. And Rabbi Lezer in the Mishnah, on the fourth line, in the opposite page on Amud Beis, the previous Amud Beis, that we're looking at it on the right side of the page. So over there, Rabbi Lezer said that he stands in the same place. He's positioned in the same place, and he just stretches his hand to the four corners. So here the Gemara says that if we would have held that you walk around by foot, you walk around, everybody would hold that you do learn out Pnei Chutz. Rabbi Kiva himself, who says he started in the southeastern corner, if he'd hold you walk around, he also would walk towards the right. The Machlokas says Rabbi Kiva holds you stand in the southeastern corner and you stretch your hand around. The same way like a Belezer. Rabbi Kiva holds like a Belezer of our Mishnah, that you stay in the same position, pivoted in the southeastern corner, and you stretch your hand around. That's why there's no issue to go dafka towards the right. If he would have held that you walk around, then he also would have said that you go towards the right. And the other man, the Yamar, Rabbi Yossi Aglili, that says you start from the northeast, he holds you walk around, and therefore he says that you go towards the right. Fourth line, this Gemara is not really affecting our main question. Our main question was Rabbi Kiva that goes to the left. Why does he go to the left? Now we have two reasons so far. Either because you don't learn out Pnei Chutz, that since he's inside the Heichel, that's different than outside the Heichel by the Yam Shlomo, by the Mizbeach HaChitzon, over there you go to the right, but in the Heichel you don't have to. And the second terrace was because you're not walking around, you're just putting your hand around. That is still remaining. All the Gemara is changing now is that even Rabbi Yosef that says you do go to the right, does he hold you go to the right because you're walking around? Here the Gemara says that he also might hold that you're standing in the same position and just putting your hand around, but he holds you're supposed to put, even when you're putting it, or just moving your hand, also you're supposed to go to the right. So it's not really affecting our main issue. What Rabbi Kiva holds goes to the left. What all the Gemara is saying is that it could be that even somebody that holds you go with you just move your hand around, he might still hold his occupation to go to the right. Rabbi Kiva argues on that. But the Gemara rejects this possibility that it's not true. Rabbi Yosef Lili does not hold that you put your hand around. He holds you walk around. But since in our Mishnah, back to the Mishnah says Machlokas, Rabbi Lezer over there says you stand in your same position and move your hand around, and we could deduce from that the Tanakama argued and held you did walk around, and the Gemara understands that since in the Brisa we see that the Machlokas of which corner, where do you start from? The Mishnah didn't mention two opinions. It just said Tanakama said that you start from the northeastern corner, and nobody argued over there. But the Gemara does think that it must be the same author as the Brisa. The Brisa is Machlokas, which corner you start from, the northeast or the southeast. And since Rabbi Yosef Lili and the Brisa is the one who says that he starts from the northeast, he must be the Tanakama of our Mishnah. And in our Mishnah, that author happens to hold that you walk around, you don't put your hand around. So therefore, the Gemara rejects the possibility we just said that Rabbi Yosef clearly holds that you stand in the same position and just put your hand around. No, he holds that you walk around. Ella machvarta kedeshnin meikara. Machvarta goes in the word chiver, white, which means that the clarity is, the true shot is, as we answered originally, masav akafa biyad, the masav akafa b'regel. That Rabbi Yosef clearly holds you walk around. That's why he's paid that they go dafka to the right. And Rabbi Kiva holds that you don't walk around, you just put your hand around, and therefore there's no paid that to go to the right, you can go to the left. The Gemara takes out the next couple of words, Yibayisema, and to the word upaha, it's a continuation now. It's not a new Yibayisema, but it's pretty clear in the Gemara that the Gemara is right, that the Gemara is not coming to say no new teretz now. It's just coming to elaborate on why should somebody hold you walk around the Mizbeach in the Heichal, you walk around the Mizbeach, the golden altar, or you stand in one position and you go around, which is really machlokas in the Mishnah. At this point, going back to the Mishnah, that there's machlokas if you walk around or you stand in the same position and you same spot and you put your hand around. What's the machlokas over there? The machlokas if you walk around or you stand in the same spot and put your hand around is the following machlokas. Ma'asav of the mizbech pnimi, kasav of the mizbech achitzon. That the one who holds you do walk around is because he learns out for the mizbech achitzon. And the mizbech achitzon, everybody agrees that when you go to put the blood on the different corners, you walk around. Surely you have to walk around over there. It's a huge mizbech, so you surely have to walk around. So here too, you learn out the inner mizbech from the outer mizbech. Even though here it's not so big, and you could theoretically stand in the same spot, but you do the same as the mizbech, you walk around. That the whole mizbeach is as big as one corner over there. The corners of the mizbeach were number by nama. The whole mizbeach was by the Mishkan was 5 by 5, but in the base of Mikdash it was huge. It was 32 by 32, and on the bottom foundation on top it was, I think, how did we get to it, to 28, 32, and then 30, and then 28, and over there were corners, and over the corners, each corner was a number by a nama. So you don't consider it a mizbeach. You're not going to learn out the mizbeach apnimi from the mizbeach achitzon. Over there you walked around because it was a mizbeach. But here the whole mizbeach is like one corner, so there's no reason to walk around. You just can stand in one position and put your hand around. We'll get to this to the two dots about another 5 lines, and then we'll summarize what we learned. Tanya Amra Bishmol Shnei Kohanim Gedolim Nishtari b'Mikdash. Here it says Mikdash Rishon, and the Gemara takes it out. It seems he wants to say that it's the Mikdash Sheni, that 2 Kohanim Gedolim were left after the base of Mikdash. And they each one personally said it wasn't that everybody agreed what they did in the base of Mikdash and we just forgot what they did, but they did a certain way. No, even in the base of Mikdash itself, they were doing hugim. Some Kohanim Gedolim did it this way, some Kohanim Gedolim did it that way. Each one explained himself why he thought that it's more mistaber to walk around, and the other one said it's more mistaber to stand and put your hand around. That you should walk around the same way you walk around the mizbeach achitzon when you have to put different matanos of blood. So too in mizbeach pnimi. It's only as big as one corner, so there's no issue to walk around it. It's not considered the same as the mizbeach achitzon, and therefore you just stretch out your hand. So that's the end of the sugya. What did we learn? It comes out that there were 2 issues we spoke about. One, the last thing we spoke about is what goes back to our Mishnah. Do you walk around or do you put your hand around? And we said the svara is because by the mizbeach achitzon you walk around, maybe here too, or maybe no, it's just like a Karen and you don't learn out from the mizbeach achitzon. In the middle of the whole issue, there also was a machlokes in the brisa, yesterday's brisa, where you started, the northeast or the southeast, and came out also an issue, which direction do you go? Do you go towards the right or towards the left? Rabbi Kiva is the one who said you go towards the left. It's interesting that the Gemara makes a deal about the one who starts in the northeast also if he goes towards the right or left. Over there's no reason to go towards the left. The Gemara only had a reason to go towards the left in order to come to the Karen that you missed. But if you're on the northwest, then also everything's going in also to go to the corner that you missed also would be on the northwest. So no reason to go to the left at all. But the Gemara does say 2 reasons for the one who says you go to the left would either be because you don't learn out Pnim Yichutz, or because you're going around with your hand. The Kiva that says you start on the southwest, he holds like a Belezer. I'm sorry, you start on the southeast, he holds like a Belezer that you stay in the same position, and therefore there's no need to go to the right. And therefore you can go to the left. As the Gemara said, you'd rather go to the left over there because you want to get to the corner that you passed up because you had to go to the east of the Mizbech. You would have wanted to do to the first opportunity, and maybe in all mitzvahs, you had to pass it up, so you go back to the left again. Someone pointed out to me that a very nice point, I think that's a nice point. It comes down to the Gemara that there's nobody that holds that there's the Indian to go towards the right only when you're walking. The Gemara had a Havamina at the fifth line. The boy saying, but the Gemara tried to say that even if you hold that you go by hand, also maybe this is far to say you go to the right also. But the Gemara knocked it down that no, Rabbi Yosef clearly holds you go by foot. You walk around. So it comes out in the Gemara that there's no Mantiyama that holds when you're standing in the same spot and you're just moving your hand, that there's an issue to go towards the right. That's what I think that's what the Gemara seems to say. So someone pointed out, Machabrusa, that by Ner Chanukah, that the poskim do bring down an issue about that. The popular minhag by Ner Chanukah is to start from the left and go towards the right for this reason, that you should go towards the right. But the Gemara is not makbid on that. L'chora, there would be a support to the Gemara. The Gemara says that there's no issue of going to the right only when you're walking. But if you're just standing in the same spot and moving your hand, l'chora, there's no issue to go to the right. I didn't look into it. I just heard about it a few minutes ago, but it sounds right.
The Lavush holds like the Gra Lahalacha, the opposite. He holds to the opposite, and he brings an example also from language that we start our letters from right to left. So it comes out, he lights the Hanukkah candles in the opposite direction.
So the question would be, does anybody, the popular psak is, the popular minhag is yes to start from the left in order to go to the right. The part is a parashik over here that there's no such issue. There's no issue of going to the right when you're standing in the same spot. I didn't realize that. If anybody finds anything about this, where's their source to say to go towards the right when you're not moving, you're just moving your hand? Okay, that's the end of our Gemara. As far as we have a few wishes over here. Where do you start from? Which direction do you go? And also, do you move or do you just move your hand? Okay, the Gemara continues. We're about 25 lines down. The first one on the line is Rabbi Eliezer, right after two dots at the end of the line. Rabbi Eliezer Omer. So Rabbi Eliezer in the Mishnah said that you stand in the same corner, same point, and you stretch out your hand. That we supposed to talk about also, or maybe Rabbi Kiva holds like Rabbi Eliezer also. You finish that sugya, but there's another issue that comes in. You put the blood on the corners in a downward motion or an upward motion. So the Mishnah said that all the corners you do with an upward motion, except for the one in front of you that you do in a downward motion. Where's the Mishnah? The Mishnah said on the fifth line, all the corners, 3 out of the 4 corners, you do with the upward motion, except for the one in front of him, he does with the downward motion. Rashi explained because the one in front of him, the Gemara is going to say that soon, that the one right in front of him, if he's going to do it with a upward motion, he's going to get a sleeve dirty from the blood. So therefore, that he sure does that with a downward motion. And the Gemara is going to talk about the other corners now. So the Gemara says, Masnisin Mani Rabbi Yudi. Our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda's version of Rabbi Eliezer. It means Rabbi Eliezer is the one who says that he stays in one corner and stretches his hand down to the other corners. And the issue is going to be, does he do it in an upward motion or in a downward motion? So our Mishnah that says that only the one in front of him is a downward motion, the rest of them are upward, other 3 corners are upward motion, is only Rabbi Yehuda's version in Rabbi Eliezer. But Rabbi Meir argues, the Tanya of Meir Omer, Rabbi Eliezer Omer. So again, we want to know what Rabbi Eliezer holds. So Rabbi Meir says that Rabbi Eliezer says, okay, that everybody agrees to, that he stays in the same spot and he smears the blood on the 4 corners. That's against our Mishnah. He says that all the corners he does with a downward motion, except for the one which is diagonally across him, which he puts with a upward motion. So it comes out that everybody agrees the one right next to him he does with a downward motion, and the one which is diagonally across him, the furthest one away from him, he surely does with an upward motion. And the question is the 2 other side ones, the one to his right and to his left, the other 2 corners, over there, does he do it with the downward or upward? So Meir says that he does that also with a downward motion. Only the one in front of him he does with an upward motion. Well, I'm sorry, did I get it wrong? Right, I got it wrong. That Meir says that only the one which is furthest away from him does he do with a upward motion, and everything else he does with a downward motion. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, like our Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, I'm not sure what I just said, so if it's good, it's good. If it's not, it's not. It's recorded, so we can check if I said it right or not. But here it says that Rabbi Yehuda holds that he stays in the same spot. All of them he does with an upward motion, except for the one in front of him. That's like our Mishnah. And he says here, but here's where the Gemara says that Rashi quoted, the reason why the one in front of him he does with the downward motion is in order that his clothing should not get dirty. The word mane means kela, means his garments, his sleeve. Rashi says nitros, that means to get soiled. We had that a few times already, that word. So that's our Mishnah is Rabbi's version of Abu Lezer, that the two side ones also, not only the one, that all of them are upward motion. I keep on making a mistake. Our Mishnah is like Rabbi Yehuda, that not only the one diagonally across from him is upward motion, also the two side ones are also upward motion. And Rabbi Meir argues and says that only the one which is diagonal is going to be upward motion. The two side ones are going to be downward motion also. The Gemara doesn't say this far as for these machlokas. The Gemara doesn't say this far. Rashi puts in as far for each one. Rashi says that it's easier to do like our Mishnah, that it is easier to do an upward motion on the other two sides also, not only the furthest one. The furthest one, it seems everybody agrees that it will be very hard to do a downward motion. You're bending over the mizbeach to the diagonal corner, and to go further down is harder. It's easier to like give one push, so to speak, like an exertion, to go as far as you have to go, and then to pull back slowly and to smear the blood, and an upward motion. That everybody agrees to. And the one in front of you, you have to do a downward motion in order not to get your sleeve dirty. And the question is the two side ones. So also it's easier to do with the upward motion on the two side ones.
Like this?
Upward means with the finger. He's smearing with his finger. He's smearing the blood on the corner of the mizbeach, and he's standing in one corner and he's stretching out his hands to the other three corners. The one in front of him, he surely does with a downward motion. He shouldn't get dirty. The one across from him, diagonal, he surely does with an upward motion. And the question is the two sides. So Rashi seems to say that it's easier to do also with the upward motion, but the Svar of Meir says that it's also with downward motion is because that's the same way that he started. The same way that he started, he continues. I just have a problem with that because it's very nice for the second corner. He continues. The first one is down. Second one is also down. The third one is diagonal. That's up. So why does Rashi mean to say that he continues the way he started? When he comes to the fourth corner, he's already had it up already. Maybe continue doing it up. So I don't know. Rashi says that way, and all this is in the opinion of the one who says he doesn't walk around, which it seems we don't. I'm not sure if we pass him like that. I don't remember how we pass him. It should seem like we pass like Tanakama, not like Rabbi Eliezer. That's what it seems like.
That you walk around?
That you do walk around. If you do walk around, then there's no question that you're always putting it a downward position. But I didn't see the halach on this yet, so I don't want to say.
All the questions.
It's only in right. It's only the whole issue is only if you stand in one position and you're stretching your hand around. Then the question is if you. That's Rabbi Lezer and the ones of Rabbi Kiva also, and then the made up Yehuda, how you do the side corners according to them. But if you walk around, then surely the one which is always in front of you, you surely do with a downward motion.
Is it smearing?
Smearing. He's smearing on the corners. Then the Mishnah continues. If that's all good, we have 5 lines from the wide lines, 5 lines up. He's after he finished smearing the 4 corners, then it says that he sprinkled on the Tar Rosh Mizbeach, which is a strange word. We had the sukkah once before, and here the Gemara is going to bring it up again. What does it mean, Tar Rosh Mizbeach? The pasuk says, just to read the pasuk again. This is in Parashas Akrimos. It says that he should put the blood on the 4 corners of the mizbeach. We just finished doing that, and now it says he should sprinkle on it, on the mizbeach, on it, from the blood which is in his finger 7 times. Show me the most Bnei Yisrael. He should purify it and sanctify it from the tumah of Bnei Yisrael. The mizbeach became tamei, it seems, and he tummy from the Averis, so maybe there's a different kind of tumah. We'll see later on what the tumah means. But he sprinkles on the mizbeach 7 times after he finished smearing the 4 corners. So what does that mean? Where does he put it on the mizbeach? And the Mishnah tells us the word tiharo, which the Torah does not say in the Torah. We'll see soon. Maybe it does, but so far it says v'izah love min adam, and the Gemara says the Mishnah says he puts it on the tar rosh al mizbeach. What is that? My taro. What does that mean? Amar Rabba Bar Shiva. How gave the mizbeach on the midway point? It means on the side wall of the mizbeach. The mizbeach is 2 amos tall. That's about 1 meter tall, and he should put it on the halfway point. Why does the word tiaro mean the halfway point? When people want to say noon, they saw rhyme. Rashi says the translation is tiara. Tiara means rhyme. So that means noon, midway. So the same way that means midpoint of the day. So that's also midday, also means midpoint of the mizbeach. So according to this, we sprinkle it on the wall of the mizbeach, on the midpoint. Meispe, kasha from the brisa, kishu maza, eno maza lo gabi epa v'lo gabi gecholam ela, chota gecholam ela ve'elach u'maza. When he sprinkles on top of the mizbeach, now on Yom Kippur, on the mizbeach, he doesn't do it on the ashes and he doesn't do it on the coals. He should shovel away the coals to both sides, and then sprinkle on the mizbeach where there's no coals, there's no ashes, there's no coals. So you see, it's on top of the mizbeach. If it will be on the wall of the mizbeach, there's no coals, there's no ashes, there's nothing. It's the wall of the mizbeach. It must be. The brisa seems partial to the brisa that he's sprinkling on the top of the mizbeach. So the Gemara retracts. You're right. Elam Rabba Bar Shila, the same person that I thought a second ago that it means the wall, the midway point. He agrees, then he says no, it means on top. Al Galuya Shal Mizbeach, the open part, the revealed part, and that's found the word tiaru. When the pasuk talks about the clear sky, it says tohar, that the color of the sky clear, tohar. So the word tohar means clear. So what does it mean clear? That is cleared away from the coals, like the Baisha has finished saying. And that's shot in the word,
We're only using this to find the understanding of the word.
So far, it's not even a pasuk in the Torah. So far, it's a pasuk it's a word in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says you should sprinkle al tiro shel mizbeach. What is tiro shel mizbeach? So it seems that we're just talking about a word of the Mishnah, not of the pasuk yet. And the question was, does it mean midway point or does it mean the revealed part? And then where it comes out, support from a brisa, that it means the revealed part from the coals and the ashes on top of the mizbeach. And that's the halacha. So after he smeared on the four corners, he also sprinkles on top of the mizbeach 7 times. Yes. Yes.
But he's moving the clothes, obviously.
He has to move the coals, like it says, that in order that it should be giluya, that it should be revealed. That's the
Oh,
point.
I have.
Tohar. Yeah, there's not need so much. Just sprinkle seven sprinkles of blood, so it doesn't need a lot of room. So he sprinkles, he moves the coals away and he sprinkles on top of the mizbeach.
Up and down?
What's up and down?
I mean, one out.
It's only on top of the mizbeach. No, here is no issues.
There's no issue.
No, it doesn't say malo lamata.
No,
That doesn't say
no,
anything. You want to know if he's, I imagine it's not going to be upward motion. It's right there. He's next to the
Once you
mizbeach.
already have a formula.
And over there was when he's doing it towards like Allah Kaporos with Mega Kaporos on the Baruch.
Right.
Here he's doing it on the mizbeach. So it seems simple for the downward motion.
Not right next to it. It's small. But it's 7, it's not 8.
7. It was 1 and 7. 1 and 7. Here's only 7. Here the pasuk says openly. The pasuk says Sheva Pamim. Second white line. I think from on top. He's on top of him mizbeach. So it's showing a downward motion. But it doesn't talk about it. It doesn't say which direction is he doing with it. For sure will be a downward, but it doesn't say. Over there's a question doing it from far away, and he could do that in upward motion. Down goes in the floor anyway. But here it's going on the mizbeach. He's right there, so it would be strange to me that he would do it in upward motion. But again, it doesn't say. Second white line. Tanya Chananya Omer B'tzat Sponi, who knows saying, of Yossi Omer B'tzat Romi, who knows saying. Here we're talking about on the top of the mizbeach. Which side of the mizbeach? He's on top. The whole mizbeach is only an amma by an amma, half a meter by half a meter. But which side of the mizbeach does he put the blood on top? On the northern side or on the southern side? So the Gemara says, what's the machlokus? Marsava Piskal B'Dorim Koi, or Marsava Piskal B'Tzapon Koi. So Rashi had mentioned this earlier, and I thought it's only a Rashi here. It seems to be based on the Gemara. The Gemara goes back to the issue we spoke a long time ago. Which side is the parochus opened up? The parochus is hooked open, coming out of the Kodesh HaKodashim. This is a long time already. He already did the matanas on the parochus, 7 of the bull, 7 of the goat, and then he came to the mizbeach, and he came to one side, either the southeastern or the northeastern, and then he went around either to the right or to the left. And now after he finished all that, he's ready to do the sprinkling on top of the mizbeach. So Rashi puts it all together. The Gemara puts it all together now, and what the Gemara is saying is that it depends where he came out of the Kodesh HaKodashim, and that would depend. And based on that is the issue: where did he start putting on the corners, the southeastern or the northeastern, which we had a machlokes already. That was Rabbi Akiva Gosei Galili, and based on that, wherever he finishes the last corner number 4, that's where he finishes doing the matanas of the mizbeach. So he should put the blood on top of the mizbeach, the 7 sprinkles on top of the mizbeach, next to the corner that he just finished doing. If he started on the southeastern, then he finished on the northeastern. And he should put the blood over there on top of the mizbeach. If he started in the northeastern, then he finished in the southeastern, and he should put the blood on top of the mizbeach on that corner. That's what the Gemara says in very short words. The Gemara goes back to the place which side is the parochus opened up. Ma'asava, third white line. Ma'asava Pischa B'Dorim Koi. the one who says that it's on the north, it's in the words you don't see too much. But the one who says that you put it on the north of the mizbech is because he holds that the opening of the parochas was on the south, and you have to fill in the blank space. And therefore, he started with the southeastern corner, and he went all around to the northeastern corner. So now he finished by the north, and therefore he puts the blood on the north side. And Rabbi Yossi Mishitaso, he's the one the Yoma. He said before a couple of pages ago that the curtain was only one curtain, was open on the northern side. And Mamela, when he started putting the four corners, he started on the northeastern side, and he went around to the south all the way. He ended up on the southeastern side. That's why he says that you put the 7 sprinkles of blood on top of the mizbech on the southern side.
Who said the room? I'm sorry,
Who said what?
Who said the room cry? The first opinion.
That's Rabbi Hananya, second line. Hananya Omer.
I see.
Hananya, and also before Rabbi Yehuda comes out, Lishitasa. Hananya is going to hold like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi holds Lishitasa. Rabbi Yehuda is the one who said that it was open on the south. The curtain was open on the south. He's going to hold like Hananya, that you end up putting the sprinkles of blood on the north, because that's where you ended up. You started with the southeastern. According to Rashi, everything. According to the Gemara, see, there are maybe other opinions, but the pashas we're learning like Rashi is that it all goes back to where you came out from. You came out in the south. That's like you started in the southeastern corner, and you ended up in the north, and you're going to put the blood on the north. If you hold like Rabbi Yossi, that you came out of the north, then you started in the northeast corner of the Mizbeach Hazav, and you went around, and you end up in the south, and then you're going to put the blood in the southern side. The fourth wide line, the Kul Yom Mia, Hechad the Gaman Matanos, the Kvano Sasem Yoav Al Gaga. Everybody agrees that wherever you finish putting the last corner, that's when you put the blood on that side of the Mizbeach. You put it on the roof of the Mizbeach, like we just said. Depends where you ended. Where did you end? Depends where you started. But everyone does agree that wherever you ended up, that's the last corner. That's the place. That's the side of the Mizbeach that you put blood on top of the Mizbeach. Why should that be? My timer. I would have thought the reason is because that's where you are. Why pass it up? Like in Mavin al Mitzvahs. But the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says at Russia, Makro, the Tiarobah Kiddusho, Mamish, what we just finished saying a second ago. The pasuk says, "These are al Mizbeach Sheva Pomim." The Tiarobah Kiddusho with the most Bnei Yisrael. The pasuk continues with Tiarobah Kiddusho. So I translated it to purify and sanctify it. But the Gemara here seems to go to the word we said a second ago about Tiaro Shom Mizbeach. Mokom Shekitsho Sham Tiaro. So I have no idea how the Gemara knows this, but Kitsho means the corners, and Tiaro means the top of the Mizbeach. So Tiaro, we do know, the Gemara just finished explaining that Tiaro means the Giluya Shom Mizbeach, which means the top. But Kitsho means the corners of the Mizbeach. The Gemara doesn't explain that. Maybe that's because he did two things on the Mizbeach. So one is Kedusha, one is Tara. I don't understand why it should be that way. But the Tara here doesn't mean Tara purity. It means the top of the Mizbeach, the clarity of the Mizbeach, where it's cleared away from the coals. So
we're learning from the words,
that's what it sounds like.
When you smear, it's more of the Kadesh.
I don't know. Okay.
When you sprinkle, it's a Meita, it's Tahar.
I don't know. I just think that one point that it could be, but it could, one point is interesting that the Gemara, even though it used the word Tara Shom Mizbeach the whole time, the Mishnah used the word, and the Gemara all the question what does it mean? The Gemara didn't give any hint that would try to dash in the pasuk of the Tiaro. It just said the pasuk says Bizo. When the pasuk talks about it says Bizo, Allah. It doesn't say that says Tiaro Kitcho. The Gemara didn't give any hint that will come to dash in the pasuk. And the Mishnah is strange that it used the word Tara Shom Mizbeach. Why be so fancy? Say Gago, Koslo. Say a regular word. But now we have a little bit hint that the Gemara was referring to this word, even though the Mishnah didn't tell us. The Gemara didn't tell us. But now Agav tells us that the word Tiaro, Tiaro refers to the Tiaro means the Matanos on top of the Mizbeach. So it seems that here the Gemara is revealing that this word of the Mishnah wasn't stammed the Mitana figured out a word, but it's actually the pasuk that says the Tiaro, and that's why Tara Shom Mizbeach means the top.
And sprinkling.
Yeah, for sure. That says the Hiza. That says the parish in the pasuk. Okay, the next. It says in the Mishnah after he finished all that, and he pours the leftover blood onto the western foundation of the outer Mizbeach. So that's to sum everything up. We've been here for many days already, so just recap in short. Maybe we should go all the way to the beginning. If I'll try to do it. If I make a mistake on the way, please correct me. I'm not reading anything now, but just to get the big day 11. Once he changes into the white clothing, first he does vidui on the bull over there between the Mizbeach and the ulam over there. He does, or a little bit off to the side, he does vidui on the par. Then he goes to the east of the Zara and he does the Agrola. He throws the lots on the two goats. Then he goes back to the west over there to do the second vidui on the par. He then slaughters the par. He gives it to somebody to mix the blood, stir the blood. he has to do the Ketores now while they're stirring the blood before he takes the blood in. He has to first get the Ketores going. So he goes to the Mizbech to get the coals, and then he takes the Ketores. He goes to the Kodesh HaKodashim with the coals, and he gets the Ketores. He puts the Ketores down. Then he goes out to get the blood of the par which was being stirred. He goes back to the Kodesh HaKodashim. Question how he goes, which route does he take, to the north, to the south, depends where it's opened up over there. Which curtain, one curtain, two curtains. He goes to the Kodesh HaKodashim and he does with the blood, with the sprinkling of the blood, Achas L'Mala Sheva Lamata. And then he puts it down on the stand in the Eichel. He goes out and he shechts the goat that was La Hashem. And he brings the blood in and he does the same thing, Achas L'Mala Sheva Lamata. And he goes out and he puts it down on the second stand. He possibly had two stands. Then he takes the blood. Yes. Then he takes the blood of the bull, which is there on the stand, and he does on the parochas, or connected the parochas, Achas L'Mala Sheva Lamata, and then the blood of the goat also, Achas L'Mala Sheva Lamata, connected the parochas. Then he takes both bloods. He pours the blood of the goat bull into the kli of the goat, of the blood of the goat, and then pours it back in again, the whole thing, both of them back into the first kli, and then he goes to the Mizbeach, past the Mizbeach, he goes to the east of the Mizbeach, and then the question is, where is that? Where does he end up? So it depends where he came out. Did he come up from the south or from the north? That's machlokas. So there's machlokas where he's starting from. Wherever he starts, he ends up on the opposite corner. If he starts on the northeast, he goes to the right and ends up by the southeast. If he starts by the southeast, he goes to the left and ends up by the northeast. And then he does matana by each one of the corners. Machlokas if he walks around or he stretches his hand around, and then he does 7 sprinkles of blood on the top of the mizbeach. He clears away the coals to make room, and he sprinkles on top of the mizbeach. And the question, where does he do that? Wherever he finished up, wherever he finished the corners, the last corner, that's where he does the blood on top of the mizbeach. Okay, I think more or less that was the same. Just an interesting thing that comes out, that when he's stretching over the mizbeach, in order to, if he holds, you stay in one position, one spot, and you stretch around, stretch your hand over. So there are coals over there. There are coals from the Victorious. That I don't know if the coals went out already. How long ago? I didn't make a cheshbon. How long ago did he bring back the Victorious of the morning? But if there are coals that are still burning, so he should watch out that he shouldn't burn himself when he's stretching across the diagonal. So I forgot what we paskin. If you paskin, they walk around, or you stretch your hand across.
That's a good story for the opinion.
But nobody said that. Nobody said that there's technical problem. Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't be so much. Excuse me. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. It's only 2 hours high, I think. No.
It's almost like a meter high, and it's the diagonal of, like say, an amma and 3/5. So say if it's an amma by an amma, so the diagonal will be like an amma and 3/5, which is less than a meter. So okay, but he has to stretch across to do the blood on the diagonal corner. If you hold that, he stays in one spot. So he's saying it's not so hard.
It's not so hard. If it would have to be a downward motion, so then his hand would have to be down, and he's pulling his hand down. So then he can get burnt by leaning over the mizbeach. But if he's just pushing his hand with his index finger down and pulling it up, he's not so far. His hand is more than 2 amas probably. So it shouldn't be.
It's like a meter tall, and it's like less than a meter diagonal. Okay, but a meter is pretty. A meter, 1 3/5. It's like let's say 3/4 of a meter. Okay, good. Yes, you go. We're in the 6th wide line. Is that it? Shari Adam. Now we're talking about Shari Adam. So now he goes out of the Heichal after he finished those 3 things in the Kodesh HaKodashim, and then in the Hol Moed, and then on the Mizbeach Hapnimi. Now he goes out. There's leftover blood. Yesterday we saw the picture only had a small kli with the blood. But our cheshbon was it should be the all dam nefesh of the par, all dam nefesh of the star mixed together. It should be a huge kli. I don't know how much that is. If anybody could find out from a showcase how much is the dam nefesh of a par that it comes out with a flow. After he checks it, it comes out with a flow. How much blood did it get? A par and a star together in one kli. The picture was not accurate. That had a little nice bowl. It was not a little nice bowl. It was probably a huge kli. So the leftover blood he pours on the Yisod Mizbeach Achitzon. He's going out now, and it comes to the western foundation of the outer Mizbeach. That's where he pours out the blood. So the Amma Kro, that was a Mishnah. We had that Mishnah. It was a Mishnah, and then it goes off into the Amma. So here it says Amma Kro Ve'es Kol Adam. There's Kol Dam Apar Yishpoch. Now the next words 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The next 5 words still the 2 dots. The you have to take out. Rashi doesn't have it. Tais doesn't have it. And the Chor is muchach in the rest of the Gemara that's not it shouldn't be the Girsa. The Girsa should be Veskol Dama Par Yishpoch. And you have to add on El Yisod Mizbach Ha'olah Asher Pesach Ohel Moed. If you look at Rashi, you can see the pasuk. It's a pasuk. It's a pasuk. No. You need the pasuk. You have 5 words with the pasuk, and then five more words. Take out the 5 more words. The last 5 words. Take that out, and continue the pasuk. It says, "Veskol Dama Par Yishpoch El Yisod Mizbach Ha'olah Asher Pesach Ohel Moed." Mizbach Ha'olah Asher Pesach Ohel Moed. You have to add on another 8 words. Take out 4 and add on 8. El Yisod Mizbach Ha'olah Asher Pesach. You look at Taispas, he has that on the top line. Tamar Kro El Yisod Mizbach Ha'olah Asher Pesach Ohel Moed. So if you have that Girza, this pasuk is not by Yom Kippur. This pasuk Rashi points out is by the Parakon and Mashiach, a different Korban Chatas, which also the blood is brought into the Ohel Moed, as we had over there by Abelezer Rav Yossi. You sprinkle it on the curtain or not in the curtain. But the Parakon, if the Kohen Gadol doesn't appear, it's kind of Korban Chatas. His Korban Chatas is different than everybody else's Korban Chatas. The blood is brought into the Heichal and you sprinkle it over there. Then it says leftover blood. That's called the Kohen, the Parakon Mashiach, and it's called the Chatas Primus. It's the Chatas which is done in the Ohel Moed. And then he also comes out over there. It says you should spill the blood on the corner, on the Yisod, on the foundation of the Mizbach Ha'olah, Asher Pesach Ohel Moed. And that, so the Gemara's dashing, it means on the side which is facing the Ohel Moed. So not because of what our Girsa says, according to our Girsa, the point would be because that's the first corner that he meets when he comes out of the Heichal. The Gemara doesn't say that. According to his other Girsa, it's a pasuk. The pasuk says when you come out of the Heichal, when you're doing the chatas of the Kohen Gadol, the Parakon Mashiach, not Yom Kippur. So it says you should pour it on the Yisod of the Mizbach Ha'olah, Asher Pesach Ohel Moed, which is more dashing that it means on the side which is facing the Ohel Moed, not because of Enmavian elements, but because the pasuk says so. And Rashi brings down the Torah's Kohanim that says there's a drush that's learned out to the extra word over there that is also refers to the power Kohen Gadol, the power of Yom Kippur. Over there, it's talking about Parakon Mashiach that he did in Avera. This pasuk, Vayikra Dalet, Vayikra Az. It's a mistake here. Oh, look at that. It's a mistake in the Torah or it says Vasham. It's not Sham. Sham is Vayikra Tazayin. It's Vayikra Dalet. It's a mistake in the Torah or. It does say Dalet. I have to look closely. I didn't see that. It says Sham Dalet. It's not the same pasuk as before in Achrimos. It's a pasuk in Parshas Vayikra by the Parakon Mashiach that he did in Avera. Over there it says that you spill all the blood on the Yisod Asher Pesach Ohel Moed, and Rashi tells us there's a drash over there to learn out also to the power of Yom Kippur. Is that all good? So again, the Gemara asks, how do you know that you spill out the blood on the western foundation of the outer Mizbeach? And the answer is you learn it out from the Parakon Mashiach with a drash that over there it says openly that the blood is spilled out on the side of the Mizbeach, which is on the face, the side of the Ohel Moed, which is the west. The rest of the Gemara now discusses some Mizbeach HaChitzon. Not the Par Yom Kippur, a regular Korban Chatas. All the other Korbanos Chatas that were brought outside the regular Mizbeach, outside, where do you spill the leftover blood when you finish doing all the sprinklings of that blood? Just to recall, when you have a regular Korban Chatas, so you take the blood up the ramp and you make a right turn and you go to the southeastern corner and you go all around and you come down on the opposite side, you come down on the southwestern corner and then you go down the ramp again. So where do you put the leftover blood? So it says, we didn't go so far yet. We're just in the Diva Masno. The first one on the line is Achitzo, about 10 lines up. So our Mishnah says, that's also people who say Zemakom, people who say Karbonis, so they say the Mishnah over there, that's what it says. That regular Korban Chatas, after you come down the ramp, after you finish doing all the blood on the 4 corners, you come down the ramp, so then you go towards the Mizbeach, and the first Yisod that you're going to meet is the southern side. You come the ramp is on the southern side. So when you go from the ramp to go back to the Mizbeach, to come to the first, you're going to come to the southern side. When you come out of the Ohel Moed, when you did the Chatas Primus, anything that was inside them, then you come to the western foundation. But if you're coming down the ramp, the first Yisod you're going to come to is the southern foundation. So that's what the Mishnah, that's what the Gemara says. Tan Rabbana, Yisod HaMizbeach. This pasuk is talking about a regular Korban Chatas, not about Yom Kippur. A regular Korban Chatas, you're supposed to pour the leftover blood.
This pasuk that we had to correct from the Tosfos above is Korban Chatas.
Yes.
Yeah, Korban Chatas.
Yes.
And
But
not-
but
not
the one Taisha is talking about is a Korban Chatas, but it's the Chatas B'Kon Mashiach, which is done in the Old Moed. Now we're talking about Yisod Mizbech. This next pasuk over here, Yisod Mizbech, is talking about a regular Korban Chatas that's done on the Mizbech Hachitzon, the outer Mizbech, regular Korban Chatas. It says also you pour the blood on the Yisod Mizbech. It doesn't say which one. Which is so? You want to say something?
Oh, it says- first it says, okay, say, Mizbech HaOilo. So
Okay.
it's on the inside, well, it's the Chitzon.
Yes. So surely the blood is poured on the foundation of the outer Mizbech. The question is which side? So by the coming out of the Ol Moed, the pasuk told us to do it on the western side. The question is by the other chatas, which you're not coming out of the Ol Moed, you did it on the Mizbech HaChitzon. Where do you put the leftover blood? On which side of the foundation? So it says Yisod Mizbech. Zeh Yisod Dromus. This means the southern foundation. Which I know that. At the Omer Yisod Dromus or Eli Yisod Merav. His name is the western foundation. Amit Yilomed Yiridasam Menach Kepesh. We're going to compare coming off the ramp. When you do a Korban Chatas, a regular Korban Chatas, you come off the ramp. It means you did the blood on the four corners of the big Mizbeach. You went up the ramp, made a right turn to the east, you went all around, and you came down on the western side. And then when you go off the ramp, if you want to go towards the Mizbeach again, you're going to come towards the south. The southern foundation you're going to meet first because the ramp is on the southern side. So here it says that how do you know where to put the blood? Because you learn out similarly to where the pasuk does tell you which foundation to put it on when you're coming out of the Heichal.
The nearest one.
Right, that's what the Gemara is saying. Even though over there it says it's the western one, but the Gemara is going to say the longest is because it's the nearest one. So to here you do the nearest one also. My
As you come
Heichal.
down, that's where you go. That's where you're gonna find the
Right.
nearest one.
My Heichal. So just like when you come out of the base of Mikdash, so that you're supposed to put the blood in the closest. It says over there on the western one. So we see that we're understanding the word is because it's the
You
closest.
just came out of the
The
airport,
exam,
that's
Say
the
you
first-
saw
that's
my
the-
Ravi. After you does when I kevesh for some machlo. They so drum. So too, when you're coming off the ramp, you're also supposed to put it similarly, not on the same kevesh as not the same yisod as was by there, but the same idea. Over there was the closest one. Here also is the closest one. You see clearly in the Gemara that the gears before had to be changed. If the Gemara said before the reason why you do it on the west is because it's the closest, the Gemara doesn't make sense. All these Russians over here because it's the same thing. Always the closest. You see, not like that. The Rashi and Taisha say the gears is that you put it on the western because the pasuk says so. Asher Pesach Ol Moed. And now we're learning out that the word. Why is that so? Because it's the closest, and the Mela you do it also when you're coming off the ramp. You also do it by the closest. That was our
So
mission.
what did you do on the Mizbech HaGadol?
You went up the ramp, you made a
Yeah.
right turn,
Right,
and you put smeared the blood on the corner. You can
give me smearing.
Yeah, chatas is a smear. And then you went further on, you
Also-
continued,
also-
you went to all the four corners and you smeared, then you came down the ramp on the southern side, you go back to the Mizbeach to pour out the blood. So you come out closest to the southern ramp foundation. Now the Gemara says it's not so simple, it's my focus about this. Tanya, Bishmal Om is ever Yisod Ravi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai Om is ever Yisod Romi. Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai don't differentiate between the chatas which was done in the Ol Moed, the Kippur, the Parkon Mashiach, and the chatas which is done outside and outside Mizbeach. They say they're both the same. Rabbi Shmuel says both of them always poured on the western foundation, even the regular Korban chatas. And Rabbi Shimon says the opposite. Everything's done on the southern foundation, even when you come out of the Heichal. And the Gemara explains what it's all about. Bishlam Rabbi Shmuel Kasava Yom Rabbi Shmuel, we understand where he's coming from because everyone agreed that it says openly by the coming out of the Heichal, you do it on the western foundation. So we said the lumdus is because it's the closest, and we made an application to the closest one. But that's not necessarily true. Rabbi Shmuel is going to say which one did the pasuk say to put it on, and the western foundation. So always do the western foundation, even if it's going to be further. You're coming off the ramp, also put it on the western foundation. So we understand where he's coming from. He says that the pasuk says openly by coming out of the Heichal, you put it on the west. So all is Shirayim is supposed to put on the western foundation. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, my time, how does he get to put it on the southern foundation, even by coming out of the Heichal? The pasuk says Hashem Lefnei Hashem. He holds that when you come out of the Heichal, that's the foundation that you meet first. Because the question is, where's the location of the Mizbeach? We have an issue come once upon a time. Is it centered? Is it to the north? Is it to the south? So he holds that it was off to the northern half. The whole Mizbeach was in the northern half of the Chatzar. So when you came out of the center of the Pesach of the Ol Moed, you came out. So then you're going to meet up with the southern foundation first. Just as much as the west. You have to go to the left if you want to go to the west. So he happens told, based on where the Mizbeach is situated, he held that when you come out of the Heichal, you're going to first meet the southern foundation first.
Because he's holding by the closest one.
Right,
He's
right.
coming in with that.
Not closest. Asher Pesach Ol
Where did
Moed.
he meet?
Asher Pesach Ol Moed. Yeah, but it's Asher Pesach Ol Moed, and it's always going to be both coming out of the Heichal and coming off the Mizbeach. It's always the southern. Kind of the Rabbi Shmuel, the very Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is never saying so dromis. In the yeshiva of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, they have different gears about Rabbi Shmuel, or they said they quoted Rabbi Shmuel as saying that it's also both time on the south. before we said that Rabbi Shmuel says everything's in the west, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says everything's in the south. Now it says that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's yeshiva, they said even Rabbi Shmuel also agrees to us that you do everything on the south. A way to remember this, Mashua Gavri Legavra. The people pull the person. Gavri is people, plural, Gavra is person, singular, Mashua is the pull. So Rashi says that it means that yeshiva of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai pulled Rabbi Shmuel to their side. That's only a mashal. Taisus has a little different pshat in it's a mnemonic only. Just a way to remember. Taisus says the pshat is that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, you talk about him and his father. That's two people. Rabbi Shmuel, you just talk about him. You don't talk about his father. So the people, the one that has two names, pull the one that has only one name. Like who's when you have a tug of war, who's stronger? The one that has two. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is stronger than Rabbi Shmuel, so to speak. But it's only a way to remember. It's only a mnemonic of how to remember who says what. That Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, whose opinion was you do it on the southern, they said that Rabbi Shmuel holds like us. Bottom line, one line up. The Mishnah ended off that when the blood comes off the Mizbeach, after you put it on the foundation, either on the western side or the southern side, whichever property you're talking about, the blood eventually ended up in the brook, in the stream, in the pipe that was going out of the Beis HaMikdash, and it went out to Nachal Kidron. And over there it says that they were sold to the gardeners for fertilizer. It was rich from all that. Ganonim, Pozeva. Turn it up on it. And the Mishnah ends off Moreland brand. If someone's going to use that earth over there, which is very rich, very fertilizer, if they use it without paying for it, then it's going to be Me'ilah. Turn it up on it. Yes, please.
My Chavrus and I yesterday were discussing, does this mean, this reference, which we also had before, that in the end of the day, everything ended up in the Amma, and that which they sold to the gardeners was actually really a mixture of Pesulim, Doichim, and the stuff that had been Shofek on the Mizbeach, which was, kaching to some degree.
Yes, that's true. That we had before, that is, here was how much Shirayim. Shirayim is that was a kosher korban and kosher Shirayim, and you do what you're supposed to do. And it eventually ends up in the Amma, which goes with the brook, which takes it out of the stream, which takes it out of the Beis HaMikdash. And sometimes you don't put it on the Mizbeach, you put it straight into the Amma, which Rashi said all the Lichluchim go, all the psolas go. So that's true, that all the bloods, if it was kosher blood, not kosher blood, all these things, you're right, they all went into the Amma, went out into the Nachal Kidron, and that was you're right, you're correct, nice point.
So what is the actual point?
The blood, sometimes you put it straight into the Amma. If it wasn't kosher Shirayim, you also put it into the Amma. That's the one I said before. Shirayim goes to the Mizbech, and the Chuyim goes to the Amma. So you see that even the blood which is puzzle is just a way of getting everything out. Here, even after it was kosher blood, but once it was finished, it went out to the Amma also.
So what it means is that which is being paid for is actually a mixture of, it's much larger amount, and it's actually a mixture of stuff that really they shouldn't have had to pay for. But because it's all mixed together, the whole quantity is paid for in order to use it.
Yes, but the pastor says most of them are kosher. Why should you say most of them are not kosher? Most of them are kosher. Most of the kabbanas are kosher. Why should be some things over there that are not kosher? Most of the kabbanas are kosher. More than Bedam and Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Shimon, comma. Machlokis if there's Mila. Our mission says there's Mila. Here seems to be a Machlokis. Question is who owns what, the Raisa Rabbana, but let's just learn the Gemara is plain that our Mishnah seems to be maybe like Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon that says more than Bedamim. There's maybe a question how to learn the Gemara, but just the words alone, more than Bedamim, that's what Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon say. The Chum say no Mila Bedamim. The Gemara continues, I'll tell the Blig Elam Rabbanan, I'll vote with the Raisa in more than Ben. Everybody agrees there's no Mila the Raisa. The only question will only be Mila Rabbanan. The Gemara says at the end of the page, let's jump to the bottom of the page. Once the mitzvah was done, there's no Mila. So over here, everything is coming out. There's Nasis mitzvah. Everything he did everything. So there's surely no Mila Midaraisa. The question is there Mila Midrabbana? And it seems the Pashup Shot would be that our mission says Mila Midrabbana, like Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon, and only Mila Midrabbana, and the Chum will say there's no Mila at all. That's what the Gemara seems to say. But again, it's hold off for Allah still. But the Gemara seems to say there's machlokes that there's Mila Midrabbana. Again, there's no Mila Midaraisa because it's already Nasis mitzvah. So the question was, did they put a Mila Midrabbana and you have to buy it? But Midaraisa, there's no Mila, it's already finished. The Gemara continues really a new sugya now, which is not our subject, because we're talking about after kapara, means once we're talking about once it was already finished. So that's called acha kapara. But now the Gemara is going to say that there could be there's no Mila even before kapara, that there's no Mila in the blood. Blood is something which is interesting, that the blood of the karbanis, there's no Mila even before the kapara, which is interesting, because our sugya really is talking about after the kapara. The charid is mamish no Mila. But here the Gemara says it could be that even before the nasis mitzvah, so there's also no milah. If somebody would take the blood of a korban even before they did the mitzvah with it, also it could be that there's no milah, and that's what the Gemara seems to say. We'll see more tomorrow. But the Gemara starts second line, Menani Mili. How do you know that there's no milah? So I'm pointing out, Menani Mili. How do you know there's no milah even before you did the mitzvah, before you did the zrika or the hazah? Amar Ula Amar Kra Lachem Shalachem Yehi. Tevei Rabbi Shmuel Tana Lachaper Nesata V'Lo Lamila. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Kra Hu. L'fnei Kapar Kalacha Kapar. So I just wanted to read it fast, just to say that there are three psukim. There are three Amoron, and each Amor brings a different pasuk for the same issue. How do you know there's no milah in the blood? So there are three psukim. Ula, of course, you don't need all three, but each Amor says a different pasuk. Ula says, because the pasuk says Lachem. Rashi brings the pasuk, Anina Sativ Lachem. I gave the blood to you. So of course the pasuk shah doesn't mean I gave it to you, but the Drash is going to say I gave it to you means there's no milah. There's no milah on the blood, even before the kapara. And Rabbi Shimon says that Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Shimon says, or Rabbi Shmuel says Lachaper. Lachaper ala mizbeach. No, either Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai or Rabbi Shmuel. My question of the years over here. So the pasuk says Lachaper. What does it mean that the blood? Its only issue is to give kapara, nothing else. Lachaper is not below the milah. There's no milah on the blood. Same halacha, different pasuk. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, a third pasuk. Amar Kra Hu. Rashi says the pasuk is ki adam hu b'nefesh shechaper. So it's also another pasuk about the blood, and it says that the blood stays the same. Who? The fnei kapar lacha kapar, that it stays status quo. But status quo, there are two ways to say status quo. You can say that it was kodesh and it remains kodesh, or you can say that it is not kodesh and it never was kodesh. And the Gemara is going to say that it never was kodesh. If you say that the status quo it stays the same, it doesn't change. Usually, kachim changes status till you did the mitzvah. It had me'ilah, then after the mitzvah is finished. And no more. But here the pasuk says that it stays the same. Since it stays the same, we're going to learn out that just like after you did the mitzvah, there's surely no milah. So too before there's also no milah. That's what the Gemara says. Who? The pasuk says who? And we dash in l'fnei kapara kalacha kapara, that before you did the mitzvah, you used the blood for azah. It's the same status as afterwards. Afterwards, there's surely no milah. Not lacha kapara in the milah. After l'fnei kapara in the milah. So we have three psukim to say that there's no milah on the blood. The Gemara is still explaining the last drasha. Who tells you to dash like that there's no milah even before? Maybe there is milah even after. Say the pasuk of drasha that he says status quo means that there usually is milah. Usually things milah go off after you use it, and here it doesn't go off, and it stays status quo. Why are you dashing like that? The Gemara answers, there's no such thing. Like the Gemara knows there can't be such a thing. Even when a pasuk would say so, it can't be. The pasuk means that. So it can't be that once you did the mitzvah, there's still going to be milah. So that's no question. And this horror, you see the whole page at one shot. That there's no issue in the Gemara that surely the blood after nasis mitzvah is surely no milah. The question is even before that. And the three psukim they all agree to the fact that there's no milah on the blood even before kapara. So if we go back to Asligya where the blood is coming out with the shiraim, so that there's mamash no milah. That is surely after kapara already. So there's surely no milah on the blood that comes out. And the question is only if it's b'rabbanan. And that the Gemara Mishnah says that there is milah, and the Gemara brings the reason Bryce focused about the point. And the Gemara says everyone knows with the rise there is no milah, surely because it's nasis mitzvah. And the Gemara says more right away that even before nasis mitzvah, there's also no milah by dam. Three psukim that say so. Lachem and lachaper and who. And tomorrow we'll see more to finish off the sugya, but that's where we'll stop today. And just to sum up today's Gemaras, we had the issue about going to the right. That Rabbi Kiva says you go towards you turn on the round of Mizbech to the left. The Gemara said two reasons. He might hold either because Tanim inside the Echel you don't go out from foot, or because he holds that you go around with your hand, you don't go around by foot. So therefore you can go towards the left. The Machlokis, if you go by foot or you put your hand around, do you say that it's similar to the Mizbech Achitzon that you have to walk around, or no, Toltik is only as big as a Karen, it's not as big as a Mizbech, so therefore you don't have to walk around. And the other issue was if you do stand in the same position, so do you do it in a downward motion or in an upward motion? And we had Machlokes Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, Pshat and Rabbi Lezer. Surely the one next to you, you could do a downward motion. Surely the one opposite you, they actually do it upward motion. Machlokes was the two other side corners. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, if you do it upward, Rashi says in order to make it easier, or downward because you started doing it downward. After that, and after you finished all that, so then at the corner, so then you sprinkle on top of the mizbeach. As the Gemara comes out that the word tiaro, maybe it's based on the pasuk, the tiaro could show. You do it on top of the mizbeach, and the Gemara says the word is clarity, like esam hashamayim latohar. Which side of the mizbeach depends wherever you finished. the last corner, if the aerobic could show wherever the kedusha was, wherever the last corner, so too you did on top of the mizbeach, and that depends where you started. When you came out of the Kodesh HaKodashim, if you came out on the south, so then you started on the southeast, then you finished in the northeast. That's where you're going to put the 7 sprinklings on top of the mizbeach. If you came out of the north side, you started with the northeastern corner, you ended up with the southeastern corner, and you put it on the southern end. The Gemara continued about the Shirayim. And by the Shirayim, my Mishnah, that's how we paskin, that by the Chatas HaPnimi, when you're coming out of the Echel, you do Asher Pesach Ol Moed, which is a pasuk by the Kohen Mashiach, also applies to the Par Yom Kippur, and you put on the western foundation, and when you're coming down off the Kedesh, you learn out that you also do the closest one, which is going to be the southern foundation. That's how you paskin. But the Gemara does bring 2 other opinions. Some hold everything is on the west, because just like the Pnimi where it says Beferish Asher Pesach Ol Moed, so too the Chatas HaChitzon. Some say the south, because if you hold the Mizbech all the way on the north, so when you come out, you are going to meet up with the southern foundation first. After that, it spoke about the blood that comes.
Is that what's going on? He's pouring out from the Yesod. Is that what we're talking about? After you understand that you're around,
Right,
and he's
right.
pouring out.
right. And we possibly put it on this, if you come down the ramp, you put it on the southern foundation. And then eventually the bloods, wherever they're coming from, they're going to eventually end up in the Amma, which go to Nachal Kidron. And look, with the rice, there's no Mila. Even before the Kapara, would have done no Mila on blood at all. And surely after he did the mitzvah, there's surely no Mila. And he's talking about after the Kapara. And the question is there Mila Mirabanan? And seems to be only a Meir and Rav Shimon say so. That's what our Mishnah seems to say. And the Chacham said there's no Mila at all, which would sound like even Mirabanan there's not. It'll be against our Mishnah, but I'm not sure about that. We'll have to see for tomorrow. Just to end off with one, and then one with 3 psukim to say there's no Mila in the blood even before the Kapara. Lachem, Lachaper, and who? And the Gemara is going to discuss more tomorrow. And that's one interesting thing that the Gemara in Brachos, when it talks about Ein Omdim L'Spal Mitoch Halacha Psuka, supposed to have something simple before you start davening, not to be confused. So to say a simple halacha that like nothing to talk about. So it says one of them is that Dama Kaza, there is Me'ila. Dama Kaza means that if you let blood of an animal of Kachim, there is Me'ila. Means even though he doesn't finish saying 3 psukim that say that there's no Me'ila on Dam Kachim, that's only for Shechta the Kachim. But if you did a Dama Kaza, you had an animal of Kachim and the veterinarian said you have to let blood, so that is holy blood, and there is Me'ila on that. And that's so simple that even before you start davening mincha, you can say it. No, don't has any kashas. That goes, simple and nothing to talk about. That's considered Allah Psuta.
And what is it, Rabbi Yochanan Amar Aleph Kuf? What's that?
Amar Kron.
Amar
Amar Kron. The pasuk says, "Who?" Okay, yes, everybody. I hope that it was clear. We ended on the bottom line, and we'll continue tomorrow again. Yes, everybody. We'll be back soon. Thank you. Thank you for listening.